The last video I shot, it was from my phone. It said I had 5 minutes. It turned out I had about 3.5 minutes, and I apologize. But now I've got the action cam back on, and I'm not in the man cave. I'm upstairs where there's a little bit better light. I just wanted to touch on where I left off, and that was if you're doing Canada and the Midwest, and why that's beneficial if you can do that. If your record allows, you don't have late child support, you don't have any DUIs, etc. Keeping your record clean and how that helps you. I'll give you an example. I was in Indianapolis and I received a load offer going back to Detroit to drop it off at the cross dock because I don't have my fast card activated anymore. I'm working on that this week. I just got my dog inoculated and got the correct paperwork because he's got to cross the border with me. It's little Frankie. He's recovering from being neutered right now, so he's going to go out later on this week. We'll be ready to go back to Canada. If I had not had to drop that freight off at the Detroit dock and had someone else take it over there, it was going to Toronto, which would be another 250 miles in addition. Okay, you get paid for the duration of the trip, the length of the trip. That's another $250 there, not to mention another $250 back when you get to the border. So by not being able to take that load, I basically got screwed out of $500 or more, because I may have picked up from there and gone to Louisville, which would have been a 600 or 700 mile trip. So it is beneficial to do Canada if you can. Once again, that's being a fast driver, FAST. You are essentially an importer-exporter with your vehicle. And depending on what type of vehicle you're running, whether it's a Sprinter van, the European, the tall, long vans you see out on the road these days, or if you're in a straight truck or a semi. So I just wanted to touch on the benefits of that. There is, of course, you've got paperwork you've got to do. There are different types of shipments. Some are fast shipments, which are they're specifically production parts for an assembly plant. So it would be for Ford, Chrysler, GM, Toyota, wherever you happen to be taking those parts. They're needed production parts, and they're an emergency, and it gives you a fast track. It's very quick to process that. You can cross the border within 20 minutes or so. Otherwise, if you have a parts shipment, which are parts that are needed but they're not emergency, then that would be something where you would be delivering to a supplier, and the parts are needed. They're produced in the U.S. or they're produced in Canada, and they need to go to the other country. And they do have an agreement. Like they've got the correct contractual obligations in place. They've met all the contractual obligations is really the right way to put that, to be able to import and export to each other with a minimum of paperwork, but they're not emergency parts technically. They're not needed at the assembly plant right now. They might be needed tomorrow or Tuesday if it's Monday, Wednesday. So within a couple days they're needed, and that's called like a PARS shipment. But that's for another time. That's getting more detailed. But the benefits basically are that you are able to, and it's the same. And the same goes for a Canadian driver coming into the U.S. It's the same deal. You are able to gain more miles, longer trips, and of course that opens up, a business opportunity to expand your business when you're able to go back and forth between the two countries. And as a side note, Mexican drivers are allowed to come into the United States and Canada, and we are not allowed to go there. That's one of the things I'm hoping changes with the new administration, that those things are made more even, because the Mexican drivers aren't subject to DOT inspections, etc., where we are, Canadians and Americans are. So these are some of the things that we face out there that most people don't know about. But it's lucrative. It's very lucrative for the Canadians to be able to come into the States, and it's lucrative for American drivers to be able to go into Canada. It's a win-win. And how that works is a U.S. driver is allowed to pick up parts in the United States and take them into Canada, and they're allowed to pick up parts in Canada and bring them to the United States. It's the same with a Canadian driver. They can pick up parts in Canada, deliver them to the U.S. They can pick up in the U.S. and take them back to Canada. We can't go into each other's countries and go from, say, Toronto to Windsor and from Windsor to London as an American driver. You can't do that. You can pick up in London and you can bring it back to Detroit or Indianapolis or Chicago, wherever it may be going. But you can't go from Canada to Canada as a U.S. driver, and it's the same with the Canadian drivers. They cannot go from the U.S. to the U.S. It's direct, point A to point B, U.S. to Canada or Canada to the U.S. That's it. So it's a very fair thing, and I actually like the agreement. It really is great. We need to smooth out a couple of areas governmentally for everything to be, for the freight rates to go back where they need to be, et cetera, to be at maximum profit level. But it really does pay for a Canadian driver to get his fast license. It really does pay for an American driver to get their fast license. So that's it for this segment right now. And I'm sorry about the last video. My phone said I had 5 minutes worth of video time. Turns out I had 3.5, and I apologize for that. But next week we'll come back with another segment. Take care, everybody.